The joke I did not mean to tell and the knock on the door that I will never forget. My name is Ethan Myers. I am 24 years old. The quietest thing about my life used to be my house, the house that I lived in. It was not a house. The house was actually very old and worn out. The house was a 2-bedroom house on the edge of Southtown, Connecticut. The house had a porch with boards that would make noise when you walked on them. The kitchen floor in the house was also very old. It would curl up at the corners. It looked like the kitchen floor in the house was trying to come off. The house belonged to my grandfather, Ethan Myers' grandfather. My grandfather left me his house when he passed away. This happened around the time I stopped going to community college. I realized I was not good at sitting in classrooms. I did not want a lot of debt. The money my grandfather saved paid for the house. That made it really mine. This is something that people my age do not usually get to experience. My grandfather's savings made a difference and I am grateful for that. The house feels like it is really mine because of what my grandfather did for me. I make a living by fixing things. I do a lot of plumbing work like fixing faucets and burst pipes and unclogging backed-up toilets in old houses downtown. When I do not have a lot of plumbing work to do, I haul away junk. Replace light fixtures and patch up drywall. I do whatever job pays me cash and keeps my hands busy. This is work. People say they respect this kind of work. When they see me doing it, they do not really respect plumbing work or the person who does plumbing work like me. My mom lives 3 states away with her husband. We only talk on birthdays. My dad just disappeared after I graduated from school. It was like he did not want to take care of anything. The only relationship that was always there for me was with my ex, Jenna. That ended when she decided that I was not good enough for her. She thought I needed to have a plan for my life. Jenna left the key to our apartment on the counter. Wrote me a note. The note said she needed more than what I could be. I did not hate Jenna for leaving me. My ex, Jenna, made it clear that she wanted someone with a future. My mom and her new husband are still together. My dad is still gone. My ex, Jenna, is the person who ever really left me, and it was because I did not have a 5-year plan. I did not like myself much because she was right. The key was still in a drawer next to all the credit card bills that I was paying off slowly, $20 at a time. Nights I came home from work, I would heat up whatever food was in the fridge and then I would fall asleep watching old television shows. The quiet nights at home used to feel like a routine. They felt safe and comfortable. It was like if I kept my life simple and did not do much, nothing bad could happen to me. The silence was nice because it was something I could count on. My life was quiet. That was okay. I liked that my world was small and easy to understand. So it was a Thursday in October. The sky just opened up. It would not close. The sky stayed open. I was drinking a beer, watching The Office when my phone rang. It was a number I did not know. I thought about letting it go to voicemail. Then I saw the name on the screen, Southtown Towers. Penthouse. Southtown Towers is a fancy building with a lot of glass and steel. The people who live there pay a lot of money just to have a view. I make money than that in a whole month. I looked at my phone like it was some kind of joke. Southtown Towers. Penthouse was really calling me. I said hello back. Hello? I asked again. A woman's voice was on the phone. It was very calm. Sounded like she was someone who tells people what to do. This is Marianne Hart from apartment 12B. Marianne Hart said she has a leak behind her sofa. The leak is getting worse. Marianne Hart wants to know if someone can come to her apartment tonight to fix the leak. I looked at the clock. It said 9:47 at night. The rain was hitting the windows hard. It was hitting them hard that the glass was shaking. Usually I would have said we could do it tomorrow. There was something going on with her that did not seem right. She was being nice and all. I could tell something was bothering her. It was like she was scared. She was trying not to let it show. The thing that was bothering her was hidden beneath her words and it was making her feel really tense. I said to the person that they should give me 20 minutes. I got my toolbox, put on a hoodie. Then I drove my car through a lot of water. The water made it hard to see out of the windshield. The Southtown Towers were at the end of Maple Street. They looked really cool in the storm, like a spaceship. The doorman saw me, waved me through. I do not think he thought I was a problem. I mean, I had shoes and a toolbox, so I probably looked pretty harmless. The Southtown Towers were still looking pretty cool as I walked in. The elevator ride to the floor was really quiet. The only sounds I heard were the elevator motor humming and the rainwater dripping from my hair onto the marble floor. When the elevator doors finally opened, I walked into a hallway. It smelled like they had just painted the walls and it smelled like money too. I had to go all the way to the end of the hallway to get to apartment 12B. When I got there, I saw that the door to apartment 12B was already a bit open. I knocked on the door one time. I said plumber, so they would know who I was. Marianne Hart was standing in the foyer with her arms crossed. She had on a charcoal suit that made her look like she just came from a tough meeting. Her hair was pulled back into a bun, but a few pieces had come loose and were hanging down. Marianne Hart is actually pretty tall. I think she is 5 feet 9 inches even when she is wearing low heels. When Marianne Hart is tired, she still walks around like she is someone who always gets what she wants. Marianne Hart never has to ask for things more than once. Except tonight. The woman told me that something was behind the sofa. She said this and then she turned around without waiting for me to tell her my name. The woman also said that she would stay out of my way. I went into the living room with her. Right away I felt out of place. The apartment was really big. Had huge windows that went all the way to the ceiling. You could see the river from them. I thought to myself, this place probably costs more than all the houses in my neighborhood put together. What really got to me was not how fancy it was. It was how empty it felt. There were no pictures of family or friends on the walls. There were no books on shelves. There were no pillows on the sofa. It did not look like someone actually lived there. All I saw was a leather sofa, a table made of glass, and a bottle of red wine that was half empty. Next to the bottle was one glass. The Riverview apartment had a leather sofa and a glass table. That was about it. The apartment was empty. The leak came from a pipe that feeds the radiator. It was a drip. This drip was pooling on the hardwood. The radiator was getting water from this pipe. Now the water is dripping down onto the hardwood. I put my toolbox down. Started doing my job. My toolbox was no longer in my hands, so I could get to work on the things that needed to be fixed. I was ready to work on the tasks at hand with my toolbox set down. Marianne was sitting at the kitchen island on a bar stool looking at her phone like it was going to hurt her. She would swipe at it every now and then, let out a sigh, and then set it back down. It was really quiet, with only the sound of the rain and the clink of my wrench breaking the silence. When I fixed the leaky part and the water stopped dripping, I got up, wiped the dirt off my hands, and made a noise to get Marianne's attention. The kitchen was quiet again except for the rain and Marianne staring at her phone. All set. Should hold. She looked up at me. Her eyes were all red around the edges. They were not crying. She said, "Thank you. I will send the payment. No rush." I should have left then. I should have packed my tools. Nodded, and then I should have vanished into the elevator. The elevator was waiting for me to get in and leave. I was thinking about my tools. I should have taken them with me when I left in the elevator. There was something about what she said that really got to me. She said it was too quiet. That is what she said. The way she said it earlier, it just stayed there in the air. It felt like it had been waiting for a long time to be said. The thing she said earlier, it was like it was waiting for years to come out. I said to the person, "Do you live alone?" It surprised me that I asked that question. Marianne's laugh was short, bitter. As of last week. Yes. The rain was coming down hard. Her apartment was like a museum that nobody went to. My own house did not seem bad anymore. It seemed like a place that had made it through the tough times my house had survived. I do not know why I said it. Maybe it was because I was really tired. The loneliness in her voice sounded a lot like mine. The wine on her breath and the emptiness around her made me say the joke before I could even stop myself from saying the joke. The joke just slipped out. I wish the joke had not come out of my mouth. I said this and I tried to laugh. "If this thing gets much for the apartment, you can always come stay at my place." I waved one hand like it was nothing. I said, "This place is really cramped. The porch leaks when it rains. My neighbor's dog barks loudly at 3 a.m. At least my neighbor's dog talks back to me when I say something to it. The porch leaks and it is cramped, but I like that my neighbor's dog barks at me. It is like we are having a conversation. That is nice because my neighbor's dog talks back to me." I said that to be funny and make things a little better. I even laughed loudly, which was weird in that quiet room. The room was so quiet and serious it made my laugh sound really awkward. I was trying to make people feel more at ease with my joke. It was pretty silly. Marianne did not laugh back. She looked at me with this expression that I could not understand. Then she nodded slowly like she was thinking about what I said and remembering it. I packed up my things, handed her my card. I left the place. The elevator ride down felt long, even longer than the ride up to her office. When I finally got home, I was soaked to the bone, shivering like crazy. At that moment I told myself that the whole experience with her would be a story that I would laugh about later, and I would probably forget about it by the next morning. I was wrong. The next morning at 6:47 a.m. someone knocked on the door hard. It was hard enough to rattle the door. I walked out to the porch wearing my boxers and an old t-shirt. I thought it was probably Mrs. Gladys from door. She usually comes over with a casserole and something to complain about. I was not really looking forward to seeing Mrs. Gladys and hearing another one of her complaints. The porch was a place to stand and wait for Mrs. Gladys. Her eyes were wide, determined and just a little terrified. She said, "Your offer," and her voice was steady. Her hands were shaking though. She asked if the offer was still good. I looked at her. My brain just stopped working. I was staring at her. I could not think of anything else. My brain was like a space. I was looking at her. That is all I was doing. "Come inside before you get really sick," I said, moving out of the way. She stopped for a moment, then she stepped inside the room. The room was what she had been looking at from the outside. Now she was actually inside the room because she had crossed the threshold of the room. And the silence in my house, my safe, predictable silence, finally broke. The house changed and so did the rules. That first week we were ghosts under the same roof. I left before dawn for jobs. A dishwasher repair, a grease trap at a bakery, a rental on Elm Street with a toilet that wouldn't stop running. I came home after dark with mud on my boots and saw the kitchen light on. A plate would be waiting on the stove under foil. Chicken and rice, lasagna, once a steak so perfectly cooked I almost forgot how to breathe. No note. No explanation. Just food. Marianne stayed in the guest room most of the time. I'd hear the shower at odd hours, the creak of floorboards when she paced. Sometimes I caught a glimpse through her half-open door, hair loose, eyes tired, wearing one of my old flannel shirts because her clothes were all dry clean only, and she'd clearly stopped caring. We didn't talk much. A good morning in the hall. A thanks over coffee. That was it. But my house started to change anyway. One morning I came downstairs and found my pile of unpaid bills stacked neatly with a rubber band like someone had respected them into order. The takeout containers were gone. The sink sparkled. The fridge had groceries, real groceries, eggs, milk, apples, even the IPA I liked. No note. That night I knocked on her door. She opened it a crack, eyes wary. "Yes. You don't have to clean up after me," I said. "I know," she replied. Then after a pause, "It helps me think." I didn't know what to say to that. So I said the first stupid honest thing that came to mind. "The flannel looks good on you." Her cheeks tinted pink. "It was in the dryer," she said. "Keep it." And she closed the door. Week 2 the silence started to crack. I came home to the smell of garlic and rosemary. Marianne stood at my stove with her sleeves rolled up, stirring something in my grandmother's cast iron skillet like she'd been born in my kitchen. Her hair was down, curling slightly from the steam. "Hope you're hungry," she said without turning. I made too much. I dropped my toolbox by the door. Starving. We ate at the table with actual plates, not paper. She'd found the good napkins, the ones I saved for Thanksgiving. The food was comfort in a way my life hadn't been for years. After dinner she washed. I dried. Our hands brushed over a plate and neither of us moved away. The moment was small, but it felt like a door cracking open. "You sing?" I said. She froze, sponge mid-scrub. "What?" "You sing when you think no one's listening," I said. "I heard it. Fleetwood Mac, I think." Her laugh was soft, surprised. "I haven't sung in years." That night, through the thin wall, I heard her again. Quiet. Careful. Like she was testing whether the world would punish her for being human. Week 3 I came home and found the crooked hallway shelf fixed perfectly level. Marianne was on her knees, my toolbox open beside her, hair tied back with one of my old bandanas. "You didn't have to," I started. "It was crooked," she said, still tightening a screw. I crouched beside her. "You're good with your hands." She paused. "I used to build furniture prototypes," she admitted. "Before the boardrooms." That was the first crack in her story. And then came the first conflict. Because people in town noticed. A woman in the grocery store stared at Marianne like she was watching a rich person cosplay poverty. A man at the gas station laughed when he saw me pump her car and muttered, "Guess the plumber caught himself a sugar mama." One afternoon my neighbor, Mrs. Gladys, cornered me at the mailbox. "Ethan," she said, voice sweet like poison, "who is that woman living with you?" "A friend," I replied. Mrs. Gladys' eyes narrowed. "A friend who pays in cash and wears heels like a weapon?" I didn't answer. She leaned closer. "Be careful. Men like you don't belong in worlds like hers." That was the first time I realized the town wasn't just curious. It was judging. And Marianne, who'd spent her whole life being respected on sight, was suddenly being looked at like she was a scandal. That night I knocked on her door again. She opened it fully this time, leaning on the frame. "Why did you really come here?" I asked quietly. "You could have gone anywhere. A hotel. A friend. Your family." Marianne looked at me for a long moment like she was measuring whether I deserved the truth. "Because you were kind without knowing my resume," she said. She swallowed. "You didn't ask who I used to be." My chest tightened. And who are you now? Her smile was small, real but uncertain. I'm still figuring that out. I nodded. Take your time. She closed the door and I stood there with my heart thumping like it wanted out of my ribs. Because something about Marianne wasn't just heartbreak. It was fear. Like she was hiding from something bigger than loneliness. The past knocked and the town showed its true face. The past didn't knock politely. It arrived in a black SUV on a Monday morning while I was loading my truck. Two men in suits stepped out like they owned the street. One glanced at my house like it was a stain. The other checked a phone then looked at me. Ethan Myers? He asked. Yeah. We're looking for Marianne Hart. My stomach sank. She's not available. The first man smiled like it was practice. We'll wait. I tried to stay calm. Who are you? The second man answered without emotion. Hartwell Dynamics. Legal department. My blood went cold. Marianne's company. A boardroom. The world she'd run from. I went inside, hands shaking slightly, and knocked on her door. Marianne, I said low. There are men outside asking for you. Silence. Then the door opened. Marianne looked different. Controlled. Her eyes were sharp, like the penthouse version of her had stepped forward. How long? She asked. Just now. She inhaled, then walked past me toward the window. She saw the SUV and the suits and her jaw tightened. I told them I needed time, she whispered. Who are they? Marianne didn't answer immediately. Then she said, they're here to make sure I don't talk. That sentence hit harder than any punch. I stared. Talk about what? Marianne finally looked at me. My company didn't just break my heart, she said. They broke the rules. She told me everything in pieces. She wasn't just a businesswoman. She had been the youngest VP at Hartwell Dynamics, the kind of person people wrote articles about. And when she pushed back against a decision, one that would have cut corners on a housing contract and put low-income tenants at risk, she became a problem. They called it cost efficiency, she said. But it was negligence dressed up as strategy. She reported it internally, then externally. And someone retaliated. They froze her accounts, locked her out, started whispering that she was unstable, emotional, unfit. And when she refused to sign a silence agreement, they threatened to ruin her completely. So you ran, I said quietly. Marianne's voice cracked. I ran because I couldn't trust anyone in my world. And when you didn't treat me like a headline, I didn't want to go back. Outside the suits waited. Marianne straightened. I'm not signing anything, she said. I nodded. Then don't. She glanced at my tiny living room, the old couch, the crooked photo of my grandfather, the chipped mug rack on the wall. You're going to get dragged into this, she warned. They'll crush you just to prove they can. I swallowed. They can try. Marianne's eyes softened. Why would you do that? I answered honestly. Because you mattered here before I knew what your name meant to the world. She blinked hard. Then she opened the front door and walked onto my porch. The two men looked almost amused seeing her in a sweater and jeans. Miss Hart, the first said smoothly. We've been trying to reach you. I know, Marianne replied. That's why I haven't answered. The second man held out papers. We need your signature. Marianne didn't take them. No. The first man's smile tightened. You're making this difficult. Marianne lifted her chin. You made it illegal. That stopped them. Excuse me, the second man said. Marianne's voice was calm. I have copies of the internal memos, the cost-cutting emails, the signed approvals. I have recorded calls of executives telling me to stop being dramatic while discussing tenant safety. The first man's eyes narrowed. If you release anything. I'm not scared anymore, Marianne said. And then the town showed its face. Mrs. Gladys opened her door like she'd been waiting for entertainment. Another neighbor stepped onto their porch. A man across the street stared with a smirk like he already knew the story. Plumber versus rich woman. The first suited man glanced around, then leaned closer. You're not in a position to negotiate, he said quietly. You're staying in a poor man's house. You think anyone will believe you now? Marianne's gaze flicked to the neighbors. To the judgment. To the whispers forming. Then she looked at me and I saw it. Her fear wasn't about money. It was about being alone again. I stepped forward. Get off my porch, I said. The man blinked. Excuse me? This is my property, I repeated. Leave. The second man scoffed. You don't know who you're talking to. I held his stare. I know exactly who you are. Bullies in suits. Marianne's shoulders lifted in a small inhale like she hadn't expected that kind of protection from someone with nothing to lose. The men exchanged a look, then the first smiled coldly. Fine. We'll do this another way. They walked away. But as they got into the SUV, one of them looked back at Marianne and said loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "Enjoy playing house. It won't last." And just like that, the town's whispers turned sharper. Because now they didn't just think Marianne was a scandal. They thought she was a threat. Instant karma, and the home we built on respect. The next few days were brutal. Not in a dramatic way. In the quiet way that breaks people. A grocery cashier suddenly acted like Marianne didn't exist. A local diner lost her reservation. Someone left a note in my mailbox that said, "Don't bring trouble here." Then my truck got a flat tire overnight, 2 nails perfectly placed. Marianne stared at the tire, then at me. "This is my fault." "No," I said. "This is who they are." That's when Marianne decided she wasn't hiding anymore. She opened her laptop at my kitchen table and started making calls. Not to beg. To build. She contacted a journalist she trusted. She filed official complaints. She documented everything: threats, intimidation, retaliation. She did it the way she used to run boardrooms, with precision. But she did it with something new now. Art. And then the twist came that nobody expected. One afternoon, a woman knocked on my door. Early 30s. Professional. Nervous. "My name is Tanya Brooks," she said quietly. "I work at Hartwell Dynamics." Marianne froze behind me. Tanya swallowed hard. "I saw you on the security footage," she admitted. "I know they came here." Marianne's voice was guarded. "Why are you here?" Tanya's eyes watered. "Because you were right," she whispered. "And because they're about to blame everything on you." She pulled out a flash drive. "This has internal records," she said. "Real proof. They've been cutting safety corners in multiple properties. They have emails telling engineers to adjust numbers. They have signed approvals." Marianne stared at the drive like it was a bomb. "Why give this to me?" she asked. Tanya looked down. "Because my sister lives in one of those buildings," she said. "And because I'm tired of pretending my paycheck matters more than someone's life." Marianne took the drive slowly. And that was the moment the story stopped being about a woman moving in with a plumber and became about justice. The journalist published the investigation within a week. It blew up. Hartwell Dynamics stock dropped. The city announced an inquiry. Tenants started speaking. Inspectors started showing up. And suddenly, the same company that sent suits to intimidate Marianne was scrambling like rats in daylight. The men who threatened her showed up again, but this time they didn't stand tall. They came with panic. "Ms. Hart," the first said, voice tight. "We'd like to discuss an agreement." Marianne stood on my porch in that same cream sweater, hair loose, eyes steady. "You mean the agreement where I stay quiet?" she asked. The man swallowed. "We can make this very generous." Marianne didn't blink. "No." He tried again. "Think about your reputation." Marianne finally smiled, but it wasn't kind. "My reputation survived," she said. "Your company won't. Instant karma doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes with receipts." The CEO resigned 3 days later. 2 executives were suspended. A formal investigation opened. Tanya became a protected whistleblower. The men in suits stopped coming. And the town? The town tried to pretend they hadn't been cruel. Mrs. Gladys showed up with cookies like she hadn't ever whispered. Neighbors suddenly waved. The diner apologized. Marianne watched it all with calm eyes. Then she said something I'll never forget. "They respect me now," she murmured. "Because they think I'm powerful again." I frowned. "Isn't that what you wanted?" Marianne shook her head. "I wanted them to respect people even when they're not powerful," she said. "That's the whole point." That night, she sat at my kitchen table and stared at the envelope of cash she'd offered the first day, the one I'd shoved behind cereal and forgotten. "I'm not staying because I'm stuck anymore," she said quietly. My chest tightened. "Then why are you staying?" Marianne met my eyes. "Because you gave me a home without asking for proof I deserved it." I swallowed hard. She smiled softly. "So, is your offer still good?" I laughed, but it came out shaky. "My offer?" I asked. She nodded. "To crash at your place," she said. "To stay." I stepped closer, heart pounding. "It was never a joke," I admitted. "Not after you walked through my door." Marianne's eyes shimmered. "Then I'm staying," she whispered. And for the first time in years, my house didn't feel like a place I hid from life. It felt like a place life finally entered.